My name is Jason Jarrett, or JJ as my friends call me. I'm an engineer working for an oil services firm that develops technology for remote offshore platform control. I'm 44 years old, and my wife April is 46. She works part-time in a chemical lab while also studying mechanical engineering at Texas A&M. We first met in college, ironically in a psychology class, even though her major was biochemistry. We got married right after she graduated, while I was still in school. We have 2 children, a 22-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter. I remember our first date. We went to a football game and then grabbed pizza afterward. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but it was memorable. On the way to get pizza, we shared our first kiss. A few dates later, we took things slow, but by Christmas, we had a passionate, mind-blowing, intimate moment. That's when I knew she was the one. One day, as I was leaving a client's office, I decided to grab lunch at home since I was only a few miles away. As I turned toward our neighborhood, I noticed my wife driving her Expedition in the same direction. I honked and waved, but she didn't seem to recognize me, likely because I was in a company car instead of my usual F-250 truck. I noticed she had a passenger, a younger man. It struck me as odd, so I decided to follow her, thinking this was unusual. She pulled into our garage and closed the door. I parked a few houses down and waited for about 10 minutes to see if she would come back out. When nothing happened, I walked up the house and peered into the side bedroom window, where the drapes were slightly open. What I saw shocked me to the core. My wife was on all fours, clearly enjoying herself with this young man. I had never seen her that enthusiastic with me. I pulled out my smartphone and started recording the scene. I quietly made my way inside to the front door and carefully approached the bedroom. As soon as they finished, I cleared my throat and continued recording. They both looked terrified, completely caught off guard. I soon learned his name was Drew, and I was furious beyond words. I figured this would be useful evidence for the divorce proceeding. I picked up Drew's clothes and cell phone, then opened my gun safe and put his belongings inside, keeping the cell phone with me. April and Drew started pleading with me, tried to explain, but I ignored them. I was in no mood to listen to either of them. I grabbed my 9mm Glock and took Drew's driver's license from his wallet before asking him to follow me into the living room. I told April not to move. In the living room, I demanded answers. How long has this been going on? I asked. Drew hesitated before admitting, about a year, once or twice a week. How often do you meet? I pressed further. Not that often, maybe every couple of weeks, he replied casually, as if we were discussing a football game. I couldn't believe the arrogance of this young man who had been sleeping with my wife. I needed to know everything about their affair. Did she ever give you and swallow? I asked bluntly. Hell yeah, she did, he said with a smirk. She never spilled a drop. The fact that my wife had never done this with me made my blood boil. I sent Drew back to the bedroom and told him to wait. My mind was filled with thoughts of revenge. I picked up Drew's phone and found his home number saved under speed dial. His wife answered on the 4th ring. I introduced myself and explained why I was calling. I told her that my wife April worked with her husband and that she needed to come to my house immediately. She arrived about 15 minutes later, completely unaware of what she was about to walk into. While waiting for Drew's wife to arrive, I went back to the bedroom. I told Drew to continue having sex with my wife. I wanted to watch. I explained that I had thought it over and wanted to participate by watching my wife with a younger man. They hesitantly resumed, looking embarrassed and scared as I still had my Glock in hand. I heard a car pull up outside. I went to answer the door before the bell could ring. Drew's wife, Christy, followed me into the house demanding to know what was happening. I took her to the bedroom where she saw the two of them together. She flew into a rage, attacking both of them on the bed. I had to hold her back gently because I needed to speak to my wife. I asked April and Drew to come to the living room. April was in tears, pleading with me, saying she loved me and only me. She promised she would do whatever it took to keep our marriage intact. I asked her the same questions I had asked Drew, and to my surprise, her answers matched exactly. I explained to her that I couldn't trust her anymore and that I was filing for divorce. She begged me not to, insisting she loved only me and would do anything to make it right. You did things with him that you never did with me, April. You can never take that back, I said. She broke down, pleading that she would agree to whatever I wanted if I would just let her stay. It was the same old excuses, the same desperate pleas. Most people in situations like this have excuses, but I needed time to think. I walked back into the living room where Christy and Drew were arguing. Christy was demanding answers, asking why he betrayed her. Drew tried to downplay it, saying it just happened, and that April was willing to do things that Christy wouldn't. Christy's comments gave me an idea. I went back to the bedroom to ask April why this happened. She explained that they had been working on a project together, and since I was often away for work, she felt lonely. One thing led to another, and they started an affair. I know I travel a lot, but I couldn't understand why she felt the need to do this. I've kept myself in shape, running several miles a day and working out regularly. April tried to justify her actions, but I wasn't convinced. Christy, on the other hand, was understandably furious. She felt deeply hurt by Drew's actions, and I realized I could use this to my advantage. I calmly told April that if she wanted to behave this way, there would be consequences. If she didn't agree to my terms, I would file for divorce and send the evidence to her workplace, where she and Drew would likely lose their jobs. I would also share it with friends and family. April, realizing she was cornered, asked what the terms were. I told her she needed to cut off all contact with Drew immediately, quit her job, and take responsibility for what she had done. She had no choice but to agree, admitting that she had brought the situation on herself. April asked why Christy needed to be involved, as she hadn't done anything wrong. I explained that it wasn't just about the affair. It was about the betrayal and the impact it had on everyone involved. Christy needed to feel like she had a say in how this played out. April reluctantly agreed. I brought Christy in to talk. At first, she was furious and refused to even look at April, saying she would rather kill her than have a conversation. I convinced her that it was in her best interest to listen. Christy reluctantly agreed and entered the room. April explained the situation and shared the terms I had set. Christy responded with a simple, "So what? That's your problem, not mine." But April continued, explaining that if the affair was exposed, Drew could lose his job, leaving them without health insurance for their kids. Times were tough for their young family, and Christy realized that the consequences would affect her as well. Christy took a moment to think and then spoke with me privately. She admitted that she didn't want to be a victim, but she understood why I needed some form of retribution. Surprisingly, she agreed with my plan and even suggested that we make sure Drew faced real consequences for his actions. I found myself respecting her honesty and resilience. Later, Christy called April into the living room and laid out her own terms. She said she might divorce Drew, and if that happened, she wanted the freedom to contact me if she needed support. It was clear that Christy had decided to take control of her life and move forward regardless of what happened with Drew. Over the next few months, I focused on rebuilding my life. April and I went to counseling and had many difficult conversations. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but the trust was broken, and I knew it would take a long time to heal. Christy, meanwhile, decided to divorce Drew. I introduced her to a colleague of mine, a kind man who treated her well. They began dating, and now they are engaged to be married. As for me, I chose not to end my marriage with April. After 25 years together, I couldn't find it in my heart to throw it all away. We've had our ups and downs, but there's still a chance for us to heal. My daughter sometimes asks why her mother seems different now, and I just smile, knowing the changes stem from everything we've been through. In the end, it's a complicated story of betrayal, confrontation, and finding unexpected paths to closure. Life isn't always fair, but sometimes we find ways to rebuild, even after the worst of storms. Thank you for joining us in this tale of revenge and resolution.